It's a new moon today, so I thought I would just share with you my tarot and oracle card practice when working around the new moon. Hello and welcome. If you are returning and if you're new, I am a tarot and oracle deck enthusiast. I'm an artist who is also in the process of creating her first indie tarot deck. And I also love working with lunar energies. And if you have heard about Moonology or working with the moon phases, but you're not sure where to start, then stick around, because in today's video I'm going to break down my process for creating a reading all around the new moon, what that means, what we might want to be focusing on, the decks I'm using, so on and so forth. Grab a cuppa and let's take a look. But first, do you have a moon phase tarot and oracle reading practice? If you do, drop a comment below and share how you like to work with the different lunar phases. These are the decks that I'm going to be using today. So what I like to do is to start off with a Season of the Witch card. We are still just about in the Sabbat of Beltane until the summer solstice later on this week, and this is really to pull an opening card to set the tone and to express my current energies for today and sort of coming into this reading. You'll notice that I've got two of the Moonology decks. The original deck, now I use this as a significator cards and where I want to be focusing the reading, talking about the lunar phase that we're in and where we're heading to the full moon. Then I use the manifestation deck to really knuckle down and focus on the energies at each of the different lunar phases now and the full moon, which I will demonstrate in a moment. I'll be closing today's reading with Rebecca Campbell's The Rose Oracle. I've selected this deck and actually similar to the Magical Hours deck because I'm working with kind of the archetype of Venus energy, because the cards have very much indicated that I need to be bringing in more joy and maybe being a little less serious. And so if you think Venus being the goddess of love and beauty, trying to harness that energy to be more appreciative and reminding myself to go back out in nature and embracing the joy of that. The Magical Hours Tarot here is really to clarify the energies of the moon. And then I will pull one, maybe two angel cards for additional guidance and support. Now, the main purpose for this video is to share my process and how I set my new moon readings up. So I'm not necessarily going to be going in depth with what the cards mean or my interpretation of this reading. It's probably going to look like quite an in-depth and complicated reading, and I will explain how you could probably simplify this if you are new to working with the moon phases. This practice has developed over 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, and so when I first started doing this I did keep this a little bit more simplified. So from the Moonology deck, we have some significator cards here. Today is the new moon in Gemini. Moving forward, we're going to be going through the waxing phase of the moon, and it tells us here that energy is gaining momentum, which is in contrast to waning moon, where we're meant to be slowing down and releasing and resting. We will find ourselves at the new moon, full moon in Capricorn, which says here that we're going to be entering the end of a tough cycle, which is good news for all of us. The next row is again more significator cards, and you'll see that these are the moon phases between the new and the full moon. Feel free to skip this step or simplify it. You might just pull a card for the new moon and the full moon. In fact, you could get rid of all of these and just focus on these cards here. But the reason I started to do this was because as the moon changes, as she grows, our energy and focus will change as well. And so this is just really points to check in with over the next couple of weeks as we go through this lunar phase. When I first started working with the new moon, I did use the suggested reading in the Moonology Manifestation book, which is where you take 4 cards to represent the energies at the new moon, a week's time, 2 weeks' time and 3 weeks' time. However, because I work with the full moon as well, I kind of found that the 3 and 4th week's time became a little bit redundant, because by the time we get to the 3rd week, we're in full moon territory, and I just found that I wasn't really referring to these. So I had a little think, and I thought, actually, for me, it's going to be more useful to work with the steps between the new and the full moon. So this is why I do this now, and I'll show you what I do with the cards at the end of the reading. Now I have my significator cards. I'm going to take my Beltane deck, or whichever Season of the Witch deck that I'm using, and I like to use the Season of the Witch decks because they're seasonal. I feel like they sort of tap into that kind of natural energy. We've got a jumper here, so we've got honey, and also some of you will know that I was using these kind of daily all of last year, and I found that was a little bit too much, so this is my way of just checking in with these decks over the year. The next part of this reading is to pull a card for the different phases between the new and the full moon. You could leave it here, and as I said, you could pick and choose which of the lunar phases between the new and the full moon that you might want to look at, because this might be a bit too much for you, particularly if you're starting out. However, I like to go a little bit deeper. What I like to do is use a tarot card to then clarify. So this is kind of the situation, and then I like to use the tarot as kind of like advice or the focus of where these energies are likely to show up. And I'm using the Magical Hours Tarot. I forgot to mention, if I'm working with Venus energy, I sometimes use the Textured Tarot. This is an indie deck. Sadly, it's out of print now, so that's why I opted to use Magical Hours for this particular video. But if you have the Textured Tarot, or similarly, if you have the Tarot of, is it called Mystical Moments? You'll know the one I mean, that would probably also work really beautifully in this spread, or any of those kind of US Games dreamy whimsical decks which are out there at the moment. So where do we need to detoxify, or what advice do we have? Oh, so we have a jumper. I'm just going to take the top one just for ease. The High Priestess. Full moon in Aries. Where am I being asked to cool my emotions? The Knight of Swords. Where do we need to trust all will be well? What additional advice can we receive? Okay, we have the Death card. Where will we be taking inspired action? Temperance. Finally, when we reach the full moon, how can we focus on positive? Okay, the Empress. Wow, Empress. And actually, what better card to end on when trying to bring in Venus energy than the Empress card? You literally couldn't make this up. Quite a powerful reading, and this is why I love doing this, because I always get such an insight, and there's always these synchronicities with the cards, doubling up on messages and really reaffirming an idea. A closing card, and I'm quite intrigued to see what the Rose Oracle gives us. Okay, please give us a closing message to sum up the core essence of this reading, I go with you. I am quite speechless. We have the sun, and look at these keywords here: joy, enjoyment, life force. The Empress card here: success, vitality and play. Look how well these two look together. This is where we started the reading. Finally then, and who would like to step forward and to support me this week? Wow, that was definitely some jumper cards. These are from the Guardian Angel Oracle deck by Delia Ciccarelli. These are the 72 angels of the Kabbalah, so they differ slightly to some of the archangels that you might be used to. Angel 48, which is May-Yohei, and if we look at some of the qualities, so we have love, peace and kindness, we have fertility and growth, some of those things that we found in the reading. And the other angel card that jumped out was Lahaway, and this is the praised god. Resilience and victory, resilience to combat, maybe some of this Knight of Swords energy that might be coming in. Balance, which we obviously found in the Temperance card. Enthusiasm and joy, which has been an underlying theme of this reading. Now, very quickly, I'm just going to show you how I would record this. I was going to include it in this video, but I think this video is going to be long enough. So what I typically do now is write down my significator cards, and then just a smaller box to say which lunar phase it is. And then I have my Moonology Manifestation cards, the tarot card, and any other cards that I have pulled. Obviously I pulled a few more at the last new moon, and what I typically do, and I mentioned this in my last video, is I'm turning these readings into visual journal pieces, so drawings, art pieces, and this is the one from last month, just taking visual elements from the cards. So I had the Three of Swords, the Five of Wands in that reading, and then just placing the image in this sort of internal inner landscape that I've been creating. If you have enjoyed this reading today and are keen to find out how I interpreted this reading, then I am going to upload my interpretation onto my Patreon channel, along with my process for creating my visual journal page. At the moment, I'm not quite sure if here on YouTube is the place for that, and so I'm just testing the waters, just to see, and particularly for those people that would like to know more and maybe have a go at completing something similar. The link to my Patreon is in the information about my channel. So when I'm done with the reading, I will take my 3 significator cards and place them on my altar just to remind me where we were at the new moon and where we're heading to. I will then place these cards in order in terms of the lunar phase. Place my opening and closing cards and my angel cards, and I will take them all and then I place them in the back of my new Moonology diary. I actually added a pouch to place these in. I do need to re-stick it because there's quite a lot of cards going in here, and just place them in the back. And then at each phase, I will then look at the oracle cards, the supporting oracle cards and angel cards, and then look through each moon phase and just sort of reflect on these as a reminder of what was in the reading. And I've mentioned this before, if I just do a single card pull and never look at it again, I just don't remember it. And so this gives me a couple of days throughout the cycle to really reflect on what these cards are telling me. And I've been trying to do this before I go to bed. Now, if you don't have time to do quite a big reading like I've just done, this is one way you could simplify it. You could just simply take your significator cards, then you could choose to pull another moon card if you have them, or simply take the tarot deck that you're working with, to get a little bit more clarity on perhaps how communication can help you this cycle from new moon to full moon. Queen of Wands. General energy for the week. Okay, King of Pentacles. So it may be that we've been thinking about our finances. And then where might a tough cycle be ending? Eight of Cups. You have enjoyed this wider exploration into how tarot cards can be used within other, I guess, spiritual practices. I'd like to recommend another channel to you, which is The Spiritual Cockney from the lovely Gary, who is a collaborator with this channel. Gary is a Reiki master and talks all things Reiki, healing energies, and he also does a lot of oracle card readings. And even if you're not Reiki attuned, but perhaps curious, Gary gives a lot of really helpful, grounded advice, particularly for those of us that maybe struggle in this modern world where there's just quite a lot to navigate, and maybe we've sort of lost touch of sort of connecting in with ourselves. Gary provides really useful tools and strategies to help us to reconnect in another way. Obviously the cards help us do that, but I think it's quite useful to try out other things as well. I mean, that's why I am exploring the moon phases as well. As always, I really do appreciate you joining me today and sticking around to explore with me a new moon tarot and oracle reading process. If you found that helpful today, do consider giving it a cheeky like and comment below what is your favourite way of working with moon energies, and people reading may find some additional tips and tricks. Until the next video, here are some other videos that you may like to watch in the meantime. I'm Sally and this is my channel, Vaudeville Manor, House of Art and Tarot. Sending lots of love today wherever you are, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.